Hello there. So this is introducing FPS Counter 5. I'm going to provide this script, and it's a character switcher. I put in character switching. So we're using Pavel's free footstep system, and we've also put the Invector Light one in. And I will talk you through the code, and then I'll supply the code. And I've also added a pause function as well, so we can pause it in the editor. I haven't figured out how to do proper pausing in game. Everyone talks about timescale 0 = 0, but that's not exactly right. I want everything to stop, including mouse inputs. Okay, so this is the controller you get with Pavel's free footstep system. No mouse movement for the camera. Uh, it works and get great footsteps, and the character's really cool. But right, I've now put in 1, 2, and 3 keys. 1, you get into first person. I've buffed the running speed and the jumping speed for it. I put a little box here, 100 by 100, and put a wood texture on it so it registers with the database. So you get wood footsteps. One of the things you see, this is the limitation of using planes and terrains, is that if you ever get to this angle, it all breaks and falls to pieces. Whereas if you stick with cubes, you're not so likely to fall through, and they don't turn invisible. They're not one-sided. Although there is a performance cost to that. Anyway, so F gets you some various features. So we've got the frames per second up there. Then we've got timer 1, timer 2, and a debug chat. So I've got debug, unity.debug.log or whatever it's called, and I've also got it on so it can come on the screen as part of the debug option. So you can debug, you can track the debug messages whilst you're actually in a build or something. And we've got P for pause, and that pauses the editor, and then we can hit play, unpause, and we unpause it. That's very nice if we want to capture anything that we've generated. What else we got? And it's basically 1, 2, 3, and we've got the Invector controller, which is a very nice camera. I mean, one thing I could do is put a Cinemachine. The controller from the 3D Kit Lite was pretty decent, so I could put that as an option number 4. Thinking about it now, one of the issues I've got with Escape is that they're all using different physics systems that they've created or interactions. So that's an issue. But so let's talk you through the process. So I've created a master object. I'm not sure if I really needed to do that, but I just like the idea of sticking them all into the character switcher thing. And I've dragged in third-person camera and third-person controller from Invector. The first-person controller, which has a built-in camera from Pavel's free footsteps, and top-down controller from Pavel's free footsteps, or free footsteps by Pavel controller and camera. And then in the character switcher, in FPS Counter script, we've got references to each of these in there. We've got timer settings. I've set it as 1 minute and 10 minutes for the timers, but you can do what you like with that. And timers are very important. So for things that you want to do that you don't want to be doing real time, you want to change. If you want a different priority, you want something to be checked for every minute, and you don't really care exactly when it happens, you can use a timer. So for example, if you wanted bodies to disappear because it's cluttering up the frame rate and the scene, you could have at 60 seconds do some housekeeping, check everything, get rid of stuff that's low priority, and then extremely low priority. Yeah, so timers are really, really important. I'm surprised they're not a default part of Unity, actually. We should just have a timer thing component and just grab them. A bit like update, but update is, so real time and resource hungry. You need things that are less priority. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I do like Invector's movement system. I do like, although I do find some of it on some of the paid assets. Like I've got the climb cliffs, which I'm going to integrate. You get some weird animation problems sometimes. So yeah, I mean, if people like first person, you have first person. If they like third person, they can have third person. A lot of games don't seem to want to cater for both. Uh, I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about doing is putting the camera just slightly in front of the eyes. I think I did that in a previous workflow. So you'd switch here, and this actual model would still be there. You just see it, because thinking it from a gameplay perspective, you don't really need to see your own body when in real life. You're not really looking what your hands are doing, what all the periphery stuff. It's not as important as looking for the guy who's trying to shoot you. The tunnel vision thing. So you really don't need to take up half your screen with a gun, in my opinion. No matter how pretty it is. Maybe you can look down and look at your gun, or bring it up to look at it, if you really want to fetish your gun stuff. But other than that, and you don't need to see your hands, do you? Oh, look, there's my hand. No, it's kind of a Heidegger thing where you just assume you have them. You don't need to see them particularly, unless there's a particular reason to see them. You don't need them in your face all the time. Texture rectangle is out of bounds. 512 by... I'm not sure what that's about. A warning there. Could be this one. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get to the code. So my point being that with the first-person camera system integrated with the third-person camera system, you just put the camera about there. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly aligned to where your eyes are. So you'd do your skull, which has happened with a few. You put it, just past your eyes, and then you can keep your 3D model. And you're going to need that if you're doing multiplayer anyway, because other people need to see you. You can't be invisible, which is what a lot of first-person controllers do, is they ignore the third-person part of it. But any multiplayer game, you're going to need both anyway, because when you look at other people, they're all in third-person. So, right, let's go into the code, shall we? So if all you're interested in is using the code, that's all you really need to know. Is there anything else I should talk about? I should talk about how you load the demo scenes and assets first person. I've created a folder called first person, and in there I've dragged prefabs from the demos. So the pre-footsteps demo, I've dragged first person, footsteps, and top down camera. This camera's little controller, camera, and then Invector did the same thing. I brought up the Invector demo and dragged out third person camera light and third person controller. So that gives us the references that we can then drag in here. So let's bring it up. This one's Notepad++. I switch around dark and light modes. So show FPS is paused. Delta time, timer 1, timer 1 remaining. So timer 1 is the timer for how long you want it, and timer remaining is how much is left of that timer. So that's the tick count. Checking it's running, and then the text, the string. Float, and remember floats have to have an F at the end. Bool, string, timer text. Float, bool, string. And now we've got the debug, public string, debug text. Now, here we've got the references for the game object, top-down controller, top-down camera, first-person controller, in-vector controller, in-vector camera, serialized view. Right, now the next functions, type it up a bit. So we've got activate in vector, so that's the function to activate in vector. If not in vector controller.activate self, that checks to see if the controller is actually active. It's active, don't bother. But if it's not active, then do these checks. Check if it's a top-down controller, and then all this is doing is trying to find transform position and make sure they all match up so you don't teleport all over the map just because you change cameras. So if it's the top-down controller, match your in-vector controller with your top-down controller. If first-person controller is active, then change it to the first-person controller. Then set active for your control, in-vector camera and controller, and switch off first-person top-downs. And we do that again for top-down, activate top-down, and activate first-person. Same sort of thing. Now we've got a pause there. I've been trying to figure out how to do pauses. You could probably comment that all out. That was for pausing in game, but I think I need to do something better than that. Right, well, that's work in progress. Now start, turning cursor .visible equals false, so we don't have the cursor, and we'll lock it in the middle of the screen. If that doesn't work for you, and cursor.lock state equals cursor.lock_mode.locked. If those don't work for you, you'll put them also in the update as first things, just to make sure, absolutely sure they don't turn up again. Because one of the things is as you move the mouse, you can get the cursor back, if not careful. Debug text equals testing debug text. Unity engine.debug.log. So this is how you do debug statements. Nowadays, you've got to put Unity engine dot in the beginning. I'm not sure why, but it's just happened. I guess it's not too bad as long as you know that you have to do that now. It does break a whole awful lot of old code though, which is ironic considering it's there to try and fix code. You're creating a bug out of your own debug.log. Anyway, so it used to be just debug.log, but now you have to put Unity engine dot before it, which is fair enough, to be honest. The more specific you are, probably the better. Now in update, we're locking the cursor and making it visible, checking if delta time. Now we were checking if the input key, I'm not sure this is the right way to be doing it, but that's the way I've done it. So input get key quotes 1, 2 and 3, and that will activate first person top down and in vector. If timer 1 is running, then tick over the timer, and timer is greater than 0, then -1 from the timer, update the timer. Else when timer's run out, you don't really need that. I mean, you could say timer 1 has run out or something. So we've got then debug text is, so we've got Unity engine, which we can print it at the very bottom of the screen during the editor. But debug text equals the new text string component or text component I put in on the screen. So that's why you have the two things saying the same thing. As an example of doing string formatting, and then reset the timer. You could have the timer switch itself off, but I didn't bother. And same thing for timer 2. If the key code is escape, we quit the application in the editor, or we quit the game application.quit if it's not in the editor. If the input key is keycode.p, which is p, we could have done quotes p. Is paused equals not is paused, so that's a pause toggle. So if is paused and it's the editor playing, the editor application dot is paused equals true. And we toggle the boolean is paused to not is paused beforehand to allow the editor to continue. Otherwise, you just can't, you lock yourself out of the editor and you have to just stop. So that's why that's there, very important. And if is pause equals false, is paused equals false. So that's just, I'm not sure if we need to do that, but I just absolutely bulletproofs it to force the application to play. I've been playing with application, that didn't work. Trying to pause the application in the game. Because you've got to have an ability to unpause. So there's something about a delayed quit function, and also the timescale thing. But anyway, that's for pausing it in game. That's something we'll come back to another time. So F equals show FPS. Now in the on GUI, void on GUI, we've got if show FPS, show rect1, rect2, rect3, rect4. So there's four rectangles of text. First one gives you the frames per second. The second one gives you the timer 1. The third one gives you timer 2, and the fourth one gives you the debug text. Then update timer. This is just showing, this is timer 1. I separated them out. I'm pretty sure I could have combined them into one function, but I decided just to completely separate out because I was having problems with, there's this quote here, an extra quote. I was having problems getting this to work, so for debug purposes and to make it easy to follow, I made two separate functions. I mean, it's unless it's absolutely essential to crunch the code into incomprehensible stuff, I think expanding the code to make it slightly more understandable, especially when I come back to look at this in a year's time, I'll be wondering what the heck is going on. So yeah, it's two different timers. We've got 1 and 2. We've kept them completely separate. I don't know if I really needed to, but I did. And that's pretty much it, really. Further next steps would possibly be to get the controller from the third person kit from Unity, but I don't know if that's, I just like Invective a lot. And it's also, the thing about the thing about Invective's 1.4 now is it's supported. So you've got a whole support system for it, whereas the trouble with the Unity stuff that they create themselves is they just abandon it. You know, it's not interested in supporting stuff. You know, they're moving on, and the pace of change is so quickly that they haven't got time. Whereas for Invective, their whole business is focused on making sure their control is the best it can be, and that's a better mindset, really. And it's why I think Unity should stick to integrating third-party stuff as much as it can, because then they're off, and it's the same as what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to offload all the code maintenance and support off onto other people whose whole business is that, rather than me having to maintain everything. But this is, you've still got to do your own coding as well to bring it all together, which is what this is trying to do. So let's go back into the demo. It's compiling again. We've got this camera. Not being able to move the mouse in this one's a bit of a kind of, can't use this one. But one of the things I did was change in here, first person controller. I changed the movement settings, forward speed I used 10, jump base speed to 16, jump extra speed 4. And the same thing with the controller for light, looking for freeze speed. I changed the walk speed wasn't too bad. The running speed 4 because I didn't want to fall off all the time, but the sprint speed I quadrupled to 16. So 3. I do like having a nice fast, and then F, bring up the frames per second, the decent frames per second. There's not much on the screen. I have noticed a few issues when I've gone to town with all the extra Invector stuff, all the extra functionality like guns and you name it. And if you want to, you can build your own third-person and third-person controller system and camera system, and particularly have a look at using Cinemachine as the camera system. But I'd much rather have someone else do it if I can. This it's actually quite fun just doing this, but other steps, right? Okay, next steps from this. I want to create a grappling hook. That's really important to me for when I'm running around and get trapped somewhere and I can't get out. I also want to bring in Invector's climbing thing, and I'm really looking for a solution for parkour and animations where you can kind of climb, proper climbing animations and proper kind of jumping over animations rather than just that all the time. A bit like Dukes of Hazzard style, and they have it in GTA 5 as well, where you kind of have proper animations. So I'm still looking for a solution for that. That doesn't cost a fortune. So yeah, I hope that's of use. Feel free to use the code, do what you like with it. A credit would be nice, but I think that's going to leave it up to people's own morality. Okay, so I hope that's of use to people.